Hey everyone, I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and sends my way. From the heart, thank you. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype to this video to help the message get out a little further. Also, do please know the message is now on writing in black and white in the sense of a book on Amazon. For those interested and want to check it out, do please stop by. Thank you. Well, everyone, today I want to speak on the Pili Toto and a good camarada from Colonia Chiques, young Furbo, right? And I touched on this story on Tony's channel, and I'll say the reasons why I want to put it on this channel with us, as I will go more into detail. Of course, it ain't going to be the same. But, anyways, I won't take you back to Solano. It's the first time I met Furbo. At this time, it was a time of war. If you went out up to these yards or came out to them yards, one, you were outnumbered, two, it was going to go up, and more than likely, we were going to get stabbed out the yard. You know, it was just facts. But anyways, as I told before, when I went out there, within an hour it was going up already. They moved us to the other yard, and me and the homie from Kansas were the only two on the whole place. So we basically collected what we could. We came out to show our presence and took flight. Boogie, vámonos. And that's how we got the 128D and got shot to Vacaville with the transfer order, right? And you guys know what happened there. But anyways, I got to know a little bit personal, on a personal note, on Furbo in the whole, more so than anything, right? And then we parted ways. I went across the street. I don't know where he went from there, to be sincere. Where we went met up later was in Ironwood. To be exact, we were both on 3 block. And even though I had the jardín, it's different when you have a fellow camarada and you're in those situations of war, then camaradas just meet, out of the blues, and you have no personal background with. I don't know if you guys get it, but anyways, getting into Furbo, he was younger than myself. He was a good homie in every sense. I got to treat him a lot more. He had a good head on his shoulders, but no doubt he was about his area. He was about he was about the Peelies. On the straight up, he pushed for politics. That's what he wanted, to be in the mix of it, right? Which is respectful for any camarada, that once your name out there like that, that's how your name's gonna get out. That's how you get involved in politics, you know. Nevertheless, I don't know if I spoke about these two homies, but in the same block, there was a camarada from Santa Paula and a camarada from Santa Maria arrived, Tecolote or Night Out. He was another youngster, but he wasn't all there for using, you know. You just when you talked to him, you knew there was something there that wasn't right, and it had to use due to his consumption of dope, you know. At the end of the day, we're all gutter babies, right? And you use, you don't know what you're using. It's just sincerely, right? The monkey gets a hold of you, and it's, as long as it promises a high, it's how it goes, right? But anyways, the homie Furbo, like I said, was about this area, so he extended some love to him besides the casa, right? With extra swords, armed tobacco, whatever it might have been. But he was also trying to give him clecha, and but the homie, could not take to the clecha. It's I remember one day he came out to the day room in shower shoes, and for those that have been in those levels, that's a no-no, big time. We never come out the cell without shoes. You know, we go in the shower with shoes, we come out the shower with shoes, you know. And anyways, you know, Pee Wee from Nella was the one that really had the bloque. So, he wanted to discipline him from the gate, and I told him, Chales, just let Furbo deal with the camarada. Just needs a little bit more patience, right? That don't mean he wasn't going to come around, Again, that was just me speaking, right? I didn't know the damage to be sincere, but anyways, in 3 block also was Psycho from Santa Paula, and he wasn't all there himself, right? Even though he played the part, and just because he's tattoos, I could tell you there's a screw wrong missing there, because he literally had the name Letty tattooed on him everywhere, literally everywhere, But he was there. I'll just say he was a clown, He was he liked to joke around with the homies, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But anyways, one day the homies on the upper tier night out, right? On an unlock, the Judas at his door, and he's trying to get in the unlock. I don't know what brought up the problem. I wasn't that close enough to them, right? And they start arguing. Amongst this argument, they start chucking him, you know? They start fighting. And for those that know, the true rules and regulations is it don't matter who it is. If it ain't one of us and a homie gets into it, it's mandatory you're gonna jump in. Or, you're gonna deal with the consequences. And there's no buts or ifs if you lay down, right? So there was a couple homies nearby him, and they jumped in on the CO, right? Because it's basically you can't touch our gente. If you do, and we all on it. If the homie's in the wrong, we'll deal with it in the hole, right? And anyways, this happened. They ended up rolling night out to the hole, and within time, Psycho starts making fun of the homie. That he was all this, he was a case of this, and all this. making fun of the homie. And again, Furbo, I'll keep it above, he was high power when it came to homies from his area. To him, it was a bad look. He was making fun of another homie from his area that just needed support, right? So he took it wrong, and they got into a personal discussion, and it led to both of them coming up and requesting for them to make it a personal issue amongst them and handle their business. Keep in mind, Psycho was a lot bigger than Furbo, right? But then again, you can't really say no to that. You as a soldado representing the jardín, you can't tell another fellow sureño he cannot defend his pride, you know? So, anyways, I basically just told him, well, hey, pick up you guys' piece, and in that cell that's opened up for the bathroom, go ahead, go get in there, tell Pee Wee to watch the door, and you guys let it out your chest. Take care of business, and let go of it. So it was said at that, right? They were leaning towards that cell. Furbo went in, and Psycho tried to snake him with the piece, and I don't know if he got him, but Furbo turned around. They started going at it, but they weren't inside all the way, So of course Huda seen it, and they found the pieces. Both of them hit. They got rolled up to the hole, rolled out, excuse me, and in the hole, I wouldn't catch up with him for a couple months. It's when that happened with Weddle, right? And I went back there for the incident, and we kept going out to yard, to the group yard, and he would end up leaving, picking up a shoe, leaving to the HP, and I stood behind, and kept picking up time to be sincere back there, right in Ironwood, but I would eventually make my way to Tehachapi. And in Tehachapi, like I said before, I was directly in the first cell. Above me was ToTo and Creeper. The Beelies. Furbo was down the tier from me on the last cell. And for those who've been in Tehachapi, you know there's no difference between shoes. If you were in that last cell, all you seen was a wall in front of your cell. Nothing else. Maybe the bottom of the staircase. But anyways, while he's there, a lot of things played out. He kept pushing for. He wanted to be involved. He loved it, you know, and it's okay. But as camaradas, you should know, you get to a place, you put yourself in this position, and it's not necessarily you always have to be the one, driving the ship. There might be a camarada better suitable for the position than you, right? But anyways, while we're there, I mentioned it before, there was a loss of a lot of fierros. Well, due to that loss, the homie Furbo would end up getting validated. It was over BS, or BS. It was in Fierros and they cut it on my peel and his name happened to be in it with the Peely's name, ToTo. And, they were trying to okey doke everybody at that time, by validating for dumb reasons. Like I stated before, my first validation was dumb. I was able to beat it through 602, right? But it was an okey doke. They already had my second one lined up, and that was a dunk basically. But getting back into Furbo, as he got validated, there was a group yard where the Pili was going out, the camaradas that were validated. I wasn't validated yet at that moment, right? And we went out to the other group yard, and basically, one day in showers, T and Creeper come down. Well, T, and he comes to my door and he shoots me some personal stuff of his. And he tells me like, "Hey, Chino, could you hold this for me, porfa?" So I told him, "Yeah, con mucho gusto," and basically told him, "Is everything cool?" Because I was gonna have to miss my yard to watch the peely stuff, right? I wasn't gonna leave it in the cell where they could hit the cell and find it in my cell. Or more so than anything, lose the peely stuff. And anyways, he just told me, that he had gotten word from ToTo if he could have Furbo hit. And I was like, como? And I told him, I spoke up at least to where I was permitted to speak up, right? And I told him, hey, but that's a good homie. And I told him how we went back and I seen him and he had a good head on his shoulders. If he wasn't going to even give him the opportunity to sit down and talk to him so he could measure them, and it was Toto's request. Toto. Well, I don't need to go into his character. He was just one of them, and Toto wanted him hit and remove. Period. But Toto was gonna see if he could have him check to please his carnal, and at the same time not wash the homie up, right? Remember, he had been there for a while, Furbo before myself. So me as a Sureño, what can I say? And I just told him, well, I appreciate that, right? And I understand it, but in reality, it makes sense to me. And then later on, it will come out that Psycho was Toto's relative, pariente, relative. He was related to him, to Toto, and he gone over there and cried to Toto. Now I want you to keep in mind, Furbo, everything he did for Apili, he had done pegadas in his county. He had helped line up things in his county jail. You know, he had done a couple hits in the system for Toto, but none of that mattered. The minute a relative cried wolf and he was in the wrong, in reality, Psycho should have gotten hit for acting the way he did and doing a PC move before even getting in the cell. You know, but when there's spillies amongst us, you have no say so. Even if you want to cry out and help the camarada, you just can't. And the facts are, it's due to fear. You might call it or call yourself el más chingón que acá y allá, but In them situations, you push and push and push, you're gonna become the problem. And unfortunately, at that time, I was a double lifer, and I knew it was wrong, but it was one of them things. Put your head down and push. Just allow them to do their thing. In reality, I sincerely thought that when it happened, Furbo was going to receive it, ask for an explanation, and push forward. In my head, I was like, the homie's going to pick up that being loyal to Toto or to one Pili is never good for many reasons. One, in this case, your hands are tied to the Pili in every sense of the word. The Pili takes a dive, you're going to fall with them. You're not going to have another Pili to speak up for you. You know, that's why we're part of a causa. We put ourselves on this position for the causa. Our loyalty ain't to be for one individual. That's where a lot make that mistake, right? But anyways, yard time came. They would end up moving on the homie, hitting him. And you guys know when the incident happens on the yard, they put you in the cages, in the smoke cages, literally getting in the block. And I guess the individual next to him that was involved started telling him that it was sent out by Toto, and homie got hurt. And when they took him out to medical, he just never came back. He decided to check in, and he's one of them individuals that fell in line, in my books. He never did nothing wrong. He was always all hyped up about pleasing the Pilis, about having the correct knowledge, about helping camaradas. When it came time to boogie, he took care of business, removals, passing things, whatever it might have been. But it just took a relative that was in the wrong to cry wolf to Toto, for Toto to throw all that out the window and none of that be worth anything. You know, and later on, it was real noticeable how Toto was way before I hit the bay. What I mean is, I also met Gadget, from Bruta. Homeboy, he was locked up, but he was having his people get things together and be taken to a spot for Toto, to be sent to Toto. To be exact, a pedazo, 36 grams, right? And I guess one of them times where something happens is always something's gonna happen, right? And that's why it should not ever be mandatory, right? Love and respect is one thing, mandatory is being another. And they couldn't get all the gramos together, right? The 36 he was supposed to drop off, and they were short a couple, literally a couple grams. And once Toto realized it, oh hell no, you do not get in between a tecato and his dope, and it's real obvious on how the program has become. Haven't you guys noticed the value of a sureño ain't no more about what you can do as a camarada. It's all weight in dope. Literally, how much dope you can bring to the table, how much dope you can get your hands on, how many people you could have mule for me, or you're gonna go collect my dope's money. That's all it is now, you know. And I know I don't say it to cause any type of stain, and those already there doing their thing, you know, do it. I know there's gonna come a time where, hey, you know, things are happening. Even though they're not out on flow, things are happening. Or tell me, since you've been on the linea, you haven't heard of it? Okay, this camarada whacked the pili. Yeah, of course he went bad, but he still whacked him. Or these camaradas put a butt whooping on a pili here and there in the Fed. And then I do believe the shoes are going to be reopened. And you think when they do, when they slam to everybody again, do you believe the camaradas are going to have the same type of mentality than they did last time they were slammed? Now that they walk personally with them, they can't have canteen packages, visits, because you're up for game. Your family's up for game. But anyways, Toto would end up going to that side. He wanted to or not. I think it was more so because he got hurt. His steel was the one that basically threw everything out the window and moved on him. But that's the reward, you know. In reality, you got to be careful, not only when you get involved to that extent, but who you get involved. There is cool peelies. I've never denied that. But you just got to be trucha. And that's the in look here. Just always be aware, you know. Just because a peely is from your neighborhood, from your area, don't mean he's going to have the best interest for you because you're just from that area. Remember, that stops existing to them. But anyways, I wanted the story here because I recently found out, I guess Furbo got out and he ended up passing away. I wasn't clear if it was through gang violence or through what. But anyways, like I said, the message includes those that fall in line. And I think this was one of the homies, right? That had never done nothing wrong, but still fell in line due to the politics, due to the trust he put in for his senor. And I guess I'll end this with this. I had the great pleasure of meeting Furbo from Colonia Chiques. May him rest in peace. You know, value was there. I always say it and I mean it because I was that stupid one, to say it like that. And I don't regret nothing I did. That's years, the wiggles in Mexico and the prisons and everything. The only thing I regret is that I did not value my loved ones at the same time, and that I seen it time and time again, and I didn't stay true to myself. There's always angles. By this, I don't mean for you to ever go out sideways, but there's always angles. But this says stay true to yourself and loyal to loved ones.